Picture the desert at night. No electric hum. No distant highway glow. Only silence, and above, a river of stars so dense it seems almost liquid, pouring across the black vault of the heavens. The Milky Way arcs overhead like a bridge between worlds. The air is cool, carrying the scent of dust and dried sage. Somewhere in the darkness, a fire crackles. Shadows move slowly around its human figures, arranged in patterns older than memory. This is not a scene from last century, or the century before that. This moment stretches back thousands of years, to a time when the sky was not a curiosity, but a presence vast, intelligent, and impossibly near. Long before telescopes pierced the veil of distance, before mathematics charted the orbits of planets, humanity looked up. And in that looking, something profound occurred. Not merely observation, but communion. Not simply watching the stars, but speaking to them, or perhaps listening. What if the rituals performed beneath these ancient skies were not primitive superstition, but something else entirely? What if they were attempts to align human consciousness with the rhythms of the cosmos itself? What if our ancestors understood something we have forgotten, that the boundary between earth and heaven, between flesh and light, was thinner than we now imagine? Tonight, we return to that desert fire. We stand where they stood, beneath the same constellations that guided their ceremonies, their prayers, their dances. The stars have not changed. The patterns remain. But somewhere between then and now, we lost the language that linked ritual to sky, earth to star, human breath to celestial turning. This is a journey into that lost connection, a search for the invisible threads that once bound humanity to the heavens. And perhaps, if we listen carefully enough, we might hear the echo of those ancient voices still whispering beneath the stars. Centuries before writing, before cities rose from river valleys, the sky kept time. Imagine a hunter on the savannah, watching the eastern horizon as dawn approaches. The constellation rising just before sunrise has shifted slightly from where it stood a moon ago. This shift means something vital to herds will migrate soon. The rains are coming. The season is turning. This was humanity's first calendar, written not in stone or parchment, but in the slow wheeling of the stars themselves. Modern archaeology has revealed just how precise this ancient timekeeping became. At sites across the globe, from the Lascaux caves of France to the bone carvings of Ice Age Europe scratches, and notations suggest lunar counts, stellar observations, calendrical systems carved into antler and stone. The Egyptians tracked Sirius, the dog star. Its heliacal rising, the moment it first appeared on the eastern horizon just before dawn, signaled the annual flooding of the Nile, the lifeblood of their civilization. Miss that prediction, and famine followed. Observe it correctly, and abundance reigned. The star became not just a marker, but a deity. Sopdet, the herald of renewal. In Mesopotamia, priest astronomers climbed ziggurats to watch Venus trace its peculiar path across the twilight sky. They recorded its movements on clay tablets, building mathematical models that predicted its appearances and disappearances with startling accuracy. These weren't mystics lost in abstract wonder. They were scientists, engineers of time, using celestial mechanics to govern agricultural cycles, religious festivals, and royal coronations. The Polynesians navigated thousands of miles of open ocean using star paths mental maps of rising and setting constellations that guided canoes across a featureless sea. They knew which stars hung above which islands, which currents flowed beneath which stellar arcs. The sky was their compass, their atlas, their guide. Even the humble farmer, tilling fields in medieval Europe, watched the Pleiades. When the seven sisters disappeared into the western dusk, it was time to plow. When they reappeared in the east before dawn, harvest approached. The stars dictated the rhythm of planting and reaping, life and survival. This was astronomy as necessity practical, essential, stripped of romance. The sky was not a mystery to be pondered, but a tool to be mastered. Yet within that mastery, something deeper stirred. Because observing the stars meant staying awake through the sacred hours of darkness. It meant standing outside, beneath the infinite, night after night. And in that vigil, something shifted in the human mind. The practical became numinous. The calendar became cathedral. But what if the rituals that developed around these observations were not merely symbolic? What if they were functional? Consider this. A ceremony is performed at Newgrange, the great passage tomb in Ireland, on the morning of the winter solstice. As the sun rises, a shaft of golden light penetrates the narrow passage, illuminating the inner chamber for exactly 17 minutes. The alignment is so precise, so deliberate, that it took engineers thousands of hours of labor to achieve. Why? The mainstream explanation is commemoration, a way to mark the solstice, to celebrate the sun's return from its lowest point. But alternative theorists propose something more radical, that the ceremony performed inside that chamber at that exact moment was designed to harness something. Not symbolically, literally. Across the ancient world, rituals were timed with celestial events, not approximately, but with astronomical precision. The Mayan calendar, with its interlocking cycles of days, months, and cosmic ages, dictated when ceremonies must occur. The Inca aligned their temples to the June solstice, performing rituals timed to the second of solar noon. The Dogon people of Mali, whose cosmology includes detailed knowledge of Sirius B, a star invisible to the naked eye, held ceremonies tied to stellar cycles they shouldn't have been able to observe. What if these weren't just commemorations? What if ancient peoples believed or knew that certain cosmic alignments opened windows? Moments when the barrier between the terrestrial and the celestial thinned? Times when human intention, properly focused and ritualized, could interact with forces we no longer acknowledge? Some researchers point to archaeoacoustics, the study of ancient sound environments. At sites like the Hal Saflieni Hypogeum in Malta, the architecture creates resonant frequencies that induce altered states of consciousness. These chambers often align with celestial events. Was sound being used as a technology, a way to tune human consciousness to cosmic frequencies during astronomical alignments? The Vedic tradition speaks of the Ritu, the cosmic order that governs time, season, and ritual. Ceremonies performed at the wrong time were not just ineffective. They were dangerous, capable of disrupting natural law. This suggests a worldview in which ritual action and cosmic timing were inseparable, two aspects of a single interactive system. If consciousness itself is affected by electromagnetic fields, by gravitational fluctuations, by the subtle shifts in Earth's relationship to sun and stars, then timing rituals to these moments might not be superstition. It might be sophisticated understanding lost technology, encoded in ceremony and myth, waiting to be rediscovered beneath the language of gods and spirits. Meanwhile, in the firelight, the dancers move. Their steps follow patterns laid down generations before. And overhead, unseen during daylight, the constellation rises toward its zenith, marking the moment when the ceremony must reach its climax. Not by chance, by design. The evidence is scattered across continents, carved into megaliths, and burned into the earth itself. At Nabta Playa, in the Egyptian desert, a stone circle older than the pyramids aligns with the rising of the star Sirius during the summer solstice 5,000 years before the pharaohs. Buried beneath the stones, cattle bones, charred by fire. A feast? A sacrifice? Or something else, an offering made at the precise moment when star, season, and ceremony converged. At Stonehenge, the famous alignment with the summer solstice sunrise has captivated imaginations for centuries. But recent excavations reveal something stranger. Evidence of massive feasts held during the winter solstice, when thousands gathered in the bitter cold. Why endure winter darkness for a ceremony? Unless the darkness itself, the longest night, when certain stars reached their highest point, was the purpose. On the Scottish island of Orkney, at the Ring of Brodgar, 56 standing stones once formed a perfect circle. Modern measurements show the monument aligns not just with solar events, but with lunar cycles tracking the 18-year pattern of moonrise extremes. Inside the circle, ash deposits, layers upon layers, suggesting centuries of fire-based rituals performed beneath the cold northern stars. In the American Southwest, Chaco Canyon's Great Kivas feature openings that frame specific stars at particular times of year. On certain nights, the Pleiades would have been visible through these apertures from within the subterranean chambers. Imagine the ceremony performed underground in darkness until that precise moment when starlight and only starlight entered the chamber, illuminating the sacred space below. These sites share odd commonalities: fire, alignment, gathering, and timing, always timing, calibrated to celestial events with an accuracy that required generations of observation. But here's the peculiar detail. Many of these sites show sudden abandonment. Rituals performed for centuries simply stop. The fires go cold. The stones stand alone. Why would a tradition so carefully maintained, so precisely calibrated, be abandoned? Climate change? Cultural collapse? Or did something else occur, something that made the rituals unnecessary or impossible? In the ash layers of Nabta Playa, archaeologists found something unexpected: small, carefully placed fragments of mica, a mineral that doesn't exist naturally in that region. It had to be transported from hundreds of miles away. Mica has unusual properties. It's an excellent electrical insulator. It reflects light strangely, and in thin sheets, it creates a shimmering effect in firelight. Was it decorative? Or was it functional part of a ritual technology we no longer understand, used during ceremonies timed to the stars? The stones remember. But their language is silent now, waiting for us to learn how to listen. As civilizations grew more complex, so did their architecture and their relationship with the sky. The Great Pyramid of Giza, perhaps the most studied structure in human history, aligns to true north with an accuracy of 3/60ths of a degree. Its shafts point toward specific stars: Thuban, the pole star of ancient Egypt, and the belt of Orion, which the Egyptians identified with Osiris, god of death and resurrection. These weren't decorative choices. The pyramid was a machine designed to facilitate the pharaoh's ascension to the stars, his transformation from flesh to stellar deity. At Karnak, the great temple of Amun-Ra stretches along an axis aligned with the winter solstice sunrise. On that morning, light floods through the entire length of the temple, illuminating the inner sanctuary where the god's statue resided. The priests would have timed their most sacred rituals to this moment, when the sun, lowest in its annual journey, began its return northward. Death and rebirth, encoded in stone and light. In Cambodia, Angkor Wat's towers replicate Mount Meru, the cosmic mountain at the center of Hindu and Buddhist cosmology. But the temple also functions as an astronomical observatory. During the spring equinox, the sun rises directly over the central tower when viewed from the western entrance. The galleries and corridors frame specific stars: Polaris, Vega, Alpha Centauri, creating sightlines that priests used to calculate calendrical events with extraordinary precision. The Temple of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza performs a different celestial theater. During the spring and autumn equinoxes, the angle of the setting sun creates the illusion of a serpent descending the pyramid's northern staircase, shadow and light forming the undulating body of Kukulkan, the feathered serpent god. Thousands gather to witness this alignment, just as they did 1,000 years ago. The ritual survives, even if its original meaning has faded. These temples were not passive monuments. They were active participants in religious life, designed to capture and channel celestial phenomena. The architecture created experiences, moments when divine presence could be felt, seen, measured. The priest standing in the inner chamber as solstice light filled the darkness wasn't merely conducting a ceremony. He was standing at the intersection of earth and cosmos, human and divine, time and eternity. Scholars understand these alignments as expressions of cosmological belief, ways of encoding religious ideas into physical structures. The temples reflected how these cultures understood the universe, placing humanity within a vast, ordered cosmos governed by celestial law. But the precision involved suggests something more in understanding that these alignments weren't just symbolic, but necessary. That the temple had to face this direction, had to frame the star, had to capture this angle of light, or the ritual would fail. Not metaphorically, actually fail. As if the temple and the cosmos were components in a single system, designed to interact at specific moments, creating conditions that existed nowhere else, conditions that made the impossible briefly, fleetingly possible. Push the question further. What if ritual itself was a form of technology? Not technology as we conceive it, machines and circuits, but technology as the systematic application of knowledge to achieve specific effects. If consciousness is shaped by environment, by sound, by light, by electromagnetic fields, then creating the right conditions might alter awareness in predictable, reproducible ways. Consider the elements common to ancient celestial rituals: rhythmic drumming or chanting, which entrains brainwaves into specific frequencies; hallucinogenic substances, which alter neurochemistry; architectural acoustics, which create resonant frequencies; and precise astronomical timing, which aligns the ceremony with gravitational and electromagnetic fluctuations caused by planetary positions. Modern neuroscience confirms that these elements affect consciousness. Drumming at certain tempos induces theta brainwave states associated with trance and heightened suggestibility. Acoustic resonance in confined spaces can produce sensations of presence, emotional intensity, even hallucinations. Magnetic field fluctuations correlate with reports of mystical experience. What if ancient priests understood this empirically through generations of observation and refinement? What if they developed rituals that, when performed under specific astronomical conditions, reliably produced altered states in which participants experienced something? Not hallucination, exactly, but perception of phenomena normally filtered out by ordinary consciousness? Fringe theorists propose that ancient civilizations possessed knowledge now lost, understanding of subtle energies, of consciousness as a force capable of interacting with the physical world, of the cosmos as a living system responsive to properly calibrated human intention. They point to recurring myths: gods who descended to teach humanity, ancestors who brought knowledge from the stars, lost sciences preserved only in fragments. The Greek tradition remembered the Telesterion at Eleusis, where initiates underwent the Eleusinian mysteries, rituals conducted in darkness, involving hallucinogens and timed to specific seasons. Participants emerged transformed, claiming to have experienced direct contact with divine reality. The rituals continued for nearly 2,000 years, suggesting they produced consistent, profound effects. The megalithic passage tombs of Ireland and Scotland were designed to isolate participants in complete darkness, then expose them to a narrow shaft of solstice light. Sensory deprivation followed by intense, focused stimulus, precisely the conditions known to induce powerful altered states. If these rituals were technologies, then astronomical alignment wasn't decoration, it was calibration. The ceremony had to occur at this moment, because only at this moment did the natural conditions exist to produce the desired effect. The alignment of stars, the position of planets, the electromagnetic environment created by Earth's relationship to the broader cosmos all became components in a system designed to temporarily alter human consciousness in specific ways. Was this superstition? Or applied knowledge in ancient science of consciousness, encoded in myth and ceremony, dismissed by modernity because it doesn't fit our paradigms, yet perhaps still operational, waiting in the darkness of abandoned temples and forgotten stone circles? The Vedic texts describe the Satya Yuga, a golden age when humans and devas communed directly, when the rituals performed on Earth resonated perfectly with cosmic law. But Anu was not merely a personification. He was the sky itself, the vast dome perceived as a living deity. Unusual movements, disappearing into solar glare, reappearing as morning or evening star, became mythic narrative, the god descending to earth, dying, resurrecting. Babylonian kings consulted celestial omens before every major decision, believing planetary positions revealed divine will. Mayan rulers justified their authority through astronomical knowledge, positioning themselves as intermediaries between humanity and the celestial gods. This wasn't primitive superstition. It was sophisticated social engineering, using astronomical knowledge to create hierarchies, legitimize power, and organize large populations around shared cosmological beliefs. The sky gods were tools, but effective ones, capable of building pyramids, mobilizing armies, and sustaining civilizations for millennia. And perhaps, beneath the politics and pageantry, something genuine persisted, the original insight that motivated the first Star Watcher, the first ritual beneath the night sky. The sense that consciousness and cosmos are not separate, that human awareness participates in something larger, that the stars are not distant irrelevancies, but intimate presences, shaping life in ways both physical and mysterious. The gods may have been fictions, but the experience that birthed them, standing beneath infinity, feeling the immensity, sensing connection, that was real. Now the theories turn speculative, reaching beyond mainstream archaeology into territory where evidence thins and imagination expands. Some researchers propose that ancient civilizations didn't just observe celestial cycles, they mapped pathways through them. That certain alignments opened what might be called stargates, not science fiction teleportation, but moments when consciousness could travel, when perception could extend beyond the body, when communication with non-human intelligence became possible. The idea appears in shamanic traditions worldwide: journeys to the world tree, ascension to celestial realms, meetings with star beings who impart knowledge. These weren't understood as metaphors, but as literal experiences, journeys taken during ritual, facilitated by specific astronomical conditions. The Dogon people of Mali possess astronomical knowledge that, according to some investigators, shouldn't be possible without telescopes. They describe Sirius as a binary system, a visible star orbited by a much smaller, denser companion. Sirius B wasn't discovered by Western astronomy until 1862 and wasn't photographed until 1970. Yet Dogon mythology, predating these discoveries, describes this system accurately. When asked about the source of this knowledge, the Dogon reference ancient visitations by the Namo amphibious beings from the Sirius system who taught their Ra ancestors during ceremonies timed to the star cycles. Mainstream anthropologists suggest this knowledge was acquired from Western sources and retroactively incorporated into mythology. But the mystery persists. How did pre-contact cultures develop detailed cosmologies that included invisible stellar phenomena? Other anomalies fuel speculation. The Nazca Line's massive geoglyphs in Peru, visible only from altitude, align with various astronomical events, but their purpose remains unclear. Were they ceremonial pathways walked during star-aligned rituals? Messages intended for observation from above by gods, ancestors, or something else? The Hopi prophecy describes humanity's origins in previous worlds, accessed through a sipapu, a cosmic portal, often depicted as a hole in the sky. The location of this portal shifts with precession, appearing in different constellations across vast time cycles. During specific alignments, the Hopi believe the sipapu becomes accessible again, allowing communication with the sky people who guide humanity's evolution. These ideas challenge conventional archaeology, which sees ancient peoples as isolated cultures developing independently. But what if underlying these diverse myths is a kernel of shared experience? What if altered states induced during astronomically timed rituals produced consistent experiences, encounters with entities, visions of cosmic structures, sensations of traveling beyond the body, that were then interpreted through each culture's mythological framework? Modern research into psychedelics and mystical experiences reveals surprising consistency. People from different backgrounds, given similar substances under similar conditions, report encountering similar entities, geometric structures, and sensations of accessing alternate dimensions. If ancient rituals produced comparable states using different methods, rhythmic drumming, sensory isolation, fasting, and astronomical timing, might they not have produced comparable experiences? The Stargate might be consciousness itself, expanded beyond its ordinary boundaries during moments when cosmic conditions, gravitational fields, electromagnetic fluctuations, collective human intention align in ways that lower the barriers between normal and extraordinary perception. Speculation, certainly, but perhaps closer to ancient understanding than the sterile materialism that dismisses ritual as mere theater, reducing millennia of human spiritual experience to ignorance and wishful thinking. Carved into temple ceilings, etched on tomb walls, painted across cave stone, a language of stars now mostly silent. The Dendra zodiac, a bas-relief from Egypt's Ptolemaic period, depicts constellations with startling precision. But some of the figures don't match the sky of that era. They reflect earlier positions, suggesting the zodiac preserves knowledge from centuries or millennia before it was carved. A record, perhaps, of when these constellations held different positions due to the slow wobble of Earth's axis, the precession of the equinoxes, which takes 26,000 years to complete one cycle. In the tomb of Sunmut, architect to Queen Hatshepsut, a ceiling panel shows the northern sky but reversed, as if viewed from outside the celestial sphere. Why? Was this an error, or intentional encoding of a perspective impossible from Earth's surface? A view from above or beyond, taught to ancient priests during rituals that altered perception. The Lascaux cave paintings dated to 17,000 years ago include dot patterns some researchers interpret as star maps constellations that hung above. Paleolithic Europe encoded in ochre and charcoal by Ice Age humans who perhaps saw the sky differently than we do now, who perhaps needed to remember the positions of stars for reasons we no longer comprehend. The Antikythera mechanism, recovered from a Roman shipwreck, is an ancient Greek analog computer that predicted astronomical positions decades in advance. Its complexity suggests a long tradition of astronomical engineering, of devices built to model celestial mechanics with gear and bronze. If this technology existed in the Hellenistic period, what preceded it? What simpler versions, now lost, taught earlier peoples to calculate eclipses, conjunctions, and stellar positions? Indigenous Australian songlines encode topography and navigation, but also astronomical information routes through the landscape synchronized with stellar paths, so that walking the land and navigating by stars become a single integrated knowledge system. The songlines are said to stretch back over 40,000 years, making them perhaps the oldest continuous cultural knowledge in human history. What astronomical information do they preserve? What star positions, now shifted by millennia of precession, might they describe? These fragments suggest something profound. A sophisticated sky language once existed, combining astronomy, mythology, and practical knowledge into integrated systems that modern categories struggle to capture. Not science or religion, but something encompassing both a way of understanding reality that made no distinction between the mechanics of celestial motion and the meaning encoded within them. Why was this knowledge lost? Perhaps because it required specific conditions to transmit initiatory rituals, oral traditions, celestial observations conducted over generations. When civilizations collapsed, when languages died, when priesthoods dispersed, the knowledge fractured. Some pieces survived in myth, others in architecture, a few in cryptic symbols carved where they might be rediscovered. But the stars themselves remain the ultimate persistent record. If we relearn to read them, not just as physics but as language, perhaps we might recover something of what was lost. Perhaps the forgotten sky tongue still speaks, whispering through megalithic alignments and mythic narratives, waiting for humanity to remember how to listen. 12,000 years ago, the Ice Age ended. Glaciers retreated, sea levels rose, coastlines drowned, and the sky slowly, almost imperceptibly, began to change. Not the stars themselves, but their positions relative to Earth's axis. For civilizations that had calibrated their entire cosmology to specific stellar positions, this drift posed a crisis. Imagine, for generations, your people have performed a ceremony when a certain star rises at dawn on the longest day. This ritual ensures the rains come, the crops grow, the community thrives. But slowly, year by year, that star rises a fraction later. At first, the difference is negligible. But over decades, the timing becomes noticeably off. The ritual that once aligned perfectly with the cosmos has become misaligned. Do you adjust the ceremony? Change the calendar? Or do you cling to the old ways, even as they drift further from celestial reality? Archaeological evidence suggests different cultures responded differently. Some adapted. The Egyptians revised their calendar multiple times to account for precession, understanding that stellar positions shifted over long timescales. The Maya incorporated precession into their long count calendar, tracking not just years, but cosmic ages spanning thousands of years. Others didn't adapt. Ritual sites carefully aligned to solstice sunrises show layers of abandonment, centuries of use, then sudden cessation. At some point, the alignment failed. The light no longer entered the chamber at the right moment. The star no longer appeared in the expected position. And the ceremonies, now cosmically out of sync, were abandoned. Climate change compounded the crisis. As temperatures warmed and precipitation patterns shifted, the agricultural cycles encoded in celestial calendars became unreliable. The stars said plant now, but the rains came late. The constellations marked flood season, but the rivers stayed low. The sky no longer matched the earth. This disconnect may have shaken ancient worldviews profoundly. If cosmic order and earthly reality diverged, what did that mean? Had the gods abandoned humanity? Had the rituals failed? Others transformed. New priesthoods arose, new calendars, new gods better suited to the changed world. But something was lost in this transition, the direct, intimate connection between human ritual and cosmic mechanics. The slow drift of the heavens must have felt like abandonment, the cosmos turning away, leaving humanity to navigate a world where the old maps no longer matched the territory. There it stands, massive T-shaped pillars arranged in circles, carved with animals and enigmatic symbols, aligned to various celestial events. Why? Mainstream archaeology suggests cultural change. The transition from hunting to agriculture made the old rituals obsolete. This pattern repeats. Stonehenge underwent multiple construction phases, each realigning the monument to compensate for processional shift. But eventually, even this adaptation ceased. The site was abandoned around 1600 BCE, not destroyed, but left standing, silent, its purpose forgotten. The structures remained, but the people left, the reasons lost to history. Some archaeologists propose drought, others social collapse. What if some rituals were designed so precisely that even small misalignments rendered them ineffective? If a ceremony required a specific star to appear in a specific location at a specific moment, for modern people, This seems irrational. A ceremony is symbolic. Alignment is decorative. But for cultures that understood ritual as technology, as functional interaction with cosmic forces, misalignment meant malfunction. You wouldn't use a broken tool. You wouldn't perform a broken ritual. So they stopped. They buried the old sites, abandoned the temples, let the knowledge fade. Because the cosmos had moved, and humanity couldn't follow. Walk through an abandoned ritual site today, the standing stones of Callanish, the earthworks of Poverty Point, the silent chambers of Newgrange. But recordings, without sheet music, without living memory of performance, could they reconstruct a symphony? Could they understand what occurred when the space was used as intended? This is our relationship with ancient astronomical ritual sites. We see the hardware, the stone, the alignment, the careful construction. But the software is gone. The chants, the movements, the knowledge of what to burn, what to ingest, what to say when the star reached its zenith. The timing of breaths, the sequence of invocations, the mental state required for the ceremony to achieve whatever it was designed to achieve. Some knowledge fragments survived in myth. The Greeks remembered the Eleusinian mysteries, but couldn't explain what made them transformative. Indigenous traditions retain ceremonies linked to celestial events, but often the original meanings have become obscured, replaced by symbolic interpretations that may or may not reflect original intent. This creates a peculiar modern condition. We have more astronomical knowledge than any ancient civilization, yet we've lost the experiential dimension they possessed. We can calculate eclipses centuries in advance, but we don't gather in ritual to witness them. We can map the galaxy, but we don't feel connected to it. We know more and experience less. Scratch in each location. The stars remember, even if we've forgotten. And perhaps, in the alignments and myths, in the patterns recurring across cultures and continents, the ancient answer, whispered in myths across the world, is unambiguous. Yes, the Egyptian god Thoth, depicted as an ibis-headed figure, was said to have descended from the stars to teach humanity writing, astronomy, and mathematics. The Sumerian myths speak of the Apkallu 7 sages who emerged from the sea to bring civilization to Mesopotamia, teaching agriculture, temple construction, and celestial observation. In Greek tradition, Prometheus stole fire from the gods and gave it to humanity, not literal flame, but divine knowledge, illumination, enlightenment. The Vedas describe the rishis, ancient seers who heard cosmic truths directly from the universe itself, encoding them in hymns that preserve astronomical and cosmological knowledge. The Dogon speak of the Namo, beings from Sirius, who taught their ancestors astronomy. The Hopi remember the star people who guided humanity's emergence into the current world. The Maya attributed their calendar to the gods Itzamna and Kukulkan, divine beings associated with celestial phenomena. From a modern psychological perspective, these myths represent humanity's tendency to attribute discovery to external divine sources, a way of understanding insight, creativity, and accumulated knowledge. The gods are projections, personifications of internal processes. But alternative thinkers ask, what if the ancients meant this more literally? Not that physical beings arrived from space necessarily, but that consciousness itself could receive information from beyond the ordinary mind. That in altered states induced by ritual, fasting, psychedelics, or astronomical timing human awareness could access knowledge it shouldn't possess through ordinary experience. Modern research into non-ordinary consciousness reveals surprising phenomena. People in deep meditative states report accessing information they couldn't have known. Psychedelic experiences sometimes produce mathematical or scientific insights later verified as accurate. The boundaries of individual consciousness seem less fixed, less isolated than materialist models assume. If ancient rituals induced similar states reliably, repeatedly, under specific conditions, then practitioners might have experienced genuine reception of knowledge. Not hallucination, but perception of patterns normally invisible to ordinary awareness. The structure of music before anyone taught it to them. The geometry of planetary motion before anyone calculated it. The relationships between stars invisible to the naked eye. In this view, the teaching stars weren't literal transmissions from alien civilizations, but the cosmos revealing its own structure to properly attune human consciousness. The mind, under certain conditions, resonating with universal patterns, perceiving directly what would take centuries of mathematics to formalize. This suggests a radical possibility that ancient astronomical knowledge wasn't accumulated solely through patient observation across generations, but also received downloaded in modern terms through ritualistic practices that temporarily dissolved the boundaries between individual awareness and cosmic pattern. Speculation? Absolutely. But consider, indigenous peoples worldwide possess ecological knowledge that amazes. Modern scientists' understanding of plant properties, animal behaviors, ecological relationships that seem impossibly detailed for cultures without laboratories or theoretical frameworks. When asked how they know these things, the answer is often the same. The plants told us, the animals taught us. The spirits revealed it. Modern anthropology translates this as metaphor. But what if it's description? What if consciousness, freed from its ordinary constraints through ritual and ceremony, genuinely perceives relationships invisible to normal awareness? What if the cosmos, through its physical instantiation in plants, animals, stars, is itself a teacher, requiring only that we learn how to become students? The ancient myths insist the stars taught us. Perhaps not in classrooms, not through language, but through direct transmission to consciousness prepared through ritual, aligned through ceremony, open through practices we've mostly forgotten. And perhaps when we stand beneath the night sky, feeling small beneath infinity, sensing something vast and intelligent in the patterns wheeling overhead, perhaps we're brushing against that ancient experience, remembering however faintly what it feels like to be taught by the cosmos itself. We still do it. On August 21st, 2017, millions of people across North America stopped. They traveled hundreds of miles, stood in fields and city streets, and stared upward as the moon slid across the sun. The Great American Eclipse, a phenomenon fully understood, precisely predicted, explained by physics down to the second, and yet people wept when they saw it. They gasped. They felt something. Every year, thousands gather at Stonehenge for the summer solstice sunrise. They stand where Neolithic peoples stood, watching light flood across the same stones, feeling what? Connection? Continuity? A sense that this moment, this alignment, still matters, even if we can't articulate why. The Perseid meteor shower brings families into backyards and parks every August, lying on blankets watching for streaks of light, ice particles burning in the atmosphere. Nothing more, yet we call them shooting stars and make wishes on them unconsciously, continuing a tradition far older than science. We've mapped the cosmos with telescopes and satellites. We've sent probes beyond the solar system. We understand stellar evolution, galactic structures, cosmological expansion. Yet we still pause for eclipses. We still mark solstices. We still feel something when we see the Milky Way stretching overhead in true darkness, far from city lights. Perhaps this is merely nostalgia, cultural residue from pre-scientific times. Or perhaps it reveals something essential about human consciousness. A need for connection to cycles larger than ourselves, for participation in patterns that extend beyond individual lives. Modern psychology recognizes the human need for meaning, for narrative, for belonging to something greater than the individual ego. Religious traditions have long provided this through mythology and ritual. But the oldest religion, if we can call it that, was sky worship, the direct experience of standing beneath vastness, feeling the immensity, sensing relationship to cosmic pattern. That impulse hasn't died. It's only been recontextualized. We know eclipses are shadows, meteors are debris, stars are distant suns, but the knowing doesn't erase the feeling. If anything, understanding how vast, how old, how intricate the cosmos is deepens the sense of awe rather than diminishing it. Some people are attempting to revive ancient practices not as historical reenactment, but as living spirituality. Neo-pagan traditions celebrate solstices and equinoxes with ceremonies inspired by ancient precedents. Astrology, dismissed by science but thriving in popular culture, represents a modern attempt to maintain the ancient belief that celestial patterns affect human life. Are these meaningful practices or mere superstition? That depends on what we mean by meaningful. If we expect magical effects, provable supernatural phenomena, we'll be disappointed. But if we understand ritual as a way of focusing attention, creating meaning, marking time, and connecting to larger patterns, then these modern ceremonies serve the same functions ancient rituals did, just with different metaphysical assumptions. The stars haven't changed. The cosmos remains what it was when the first human looked up and wondered. What's changed is us, our knowledge, our worldview, our relationship to mystery. We've traded direct experience for indirect understanding, participation for observation, presence for analysis. But perhaps we can reclaim some of what was lost without abandoning what we've gained. Perhaps we can study the stars with telescopes and also stand beneath them in silence. Perhaps we can calculate orbital mechanics and also feel wonder when planets align. Perhaps knowledge and experience aren't opposites, but complements, two ways of relating to the same vast, mysterious, beautiful cosmos. The ancient mind still lives within us. It surfaces when we stop, look up, and feel the pull of something infinite, the same pull felt by the hunter on the savannah, the priest in the temple, the shaman in the cave. Beneath the layers of civilization, technology, and rational thought, we're still star watchers, still creatures of earth looking toward heaven, still wondering if the light we see carries more than photons, if it carries, somehow, meaning. Full circle now. Back to the desert, the fire, the darkness. The flames have burned low. The stars wheel overhead, impossibly distant, yet somehow present. Each point of light, a sun that existed long before humanity, that will burn long after we're gone. Time collapses thousands of years between now and the last ceremony performed at this spot, yet the pattern overhead is nearly identical. The stars have moved slightly, drifted with precession's slow waltz, but the constellations remain recognizable. The sky has not forgotten, even if we have. Did ancient rituals truly connect humanity with the stars? Did ceremonies timed to celestial events open windows, create communion, harness forces we no longer acknowledge? Or were they elaborate expressions of meaning making profound, beautiful, culturally essential, yet ultimately symbolic, projections of human consciousness onto an indifferent cosmos? Perhaps both are true. Perhaps the connection was real not, in the way ancient peoples imagined, as literal communication with divine beings, but as something equally profound, a resonance between human awareness and cosmic pattern. A recognition that consciousness itself participates in the universe, is made from the same energy, follows the same laws, emerges from the same primal source as stars and galaxies. When ancient peoples performed rituals beneath the stars, they weren't accessing magic. They were accessing something deeper, the felt sense of belonging to the cosmos, of being not separate from, but part of the grand pattern, of consciousness as a phenomenon no less cosmic than stellar fusion or gravitational collapse. Modern science confirms this intuition in its own language. We are, quite literally, made of star stuff. The carbon, nitrogen, oxygen in our bodies were forged in stellar cores and scattered across space in supernova billions of years ago. We are the cosmos observing itself, consciousness emerging from matter that once blazed in ancient stars. The connection ancient rituals sought to create already exists. We are it. But knowledge of connection isn't the same as experience of it. The ancient rituals created experience moments when the intellectual understanding became visceral, when the boundary between self and universe dissolved, when participation in cosmic pattern moved from abstract concept to lived reality. Perhaps that's what we've lost, and what calls us still. Not supernatural powers, not magical effects, but the experiential dimension, a direct, unmediated encounter with cosmic vastness. The sense that we belong here, beneath these stars, that we're not tourists in the universe, but natives, that our consciousness is as natural and essential as gravity and light. The rituals are gone. The knowledge has fragmented. The priests who held the traditions have long since turned to dust. But the stars remain. The patterns continue. The cosmos still turns above us, indifferent perhaps, but available, waiting for us to look up, to pay attention, to open ourselves to the experience our ancestors knew instinctively, that we are participants in something vast, something ancient, something infinitely larger than individual lives, yet intimately present in each breath, each heartbeat, each moment of awareness. So we stand beneath the desert sky, as humans have stood for thousands of generations. We watch the stars wheel overhead, and in the watching, perhaps we touch something eternal, not answers, but the enduring question that motivated every ancient ritual, every ceremony, every prayer whispered to the heavens. Who are we beneath this vastness? What does it mean to be conscious in a cosmos so old, so large, so mysterious? And might the stars, in their patient burning, have something to teach us still? The fire dims, the darkness deepens, and overhead the stars shine on, indifferent, eternal, magnificent, and somehow, despite the silence, still speaking to anyone willing to listen.